Okay, so this literally just happened to me like 2 hours ago, and I'm still kind of reeling from it. So bear with me, because my brain is scrambling to process what the hell just went down. I was at this coffee shop, right? Not even my usual spot, which is what makes this whole thing even more bizarre. My regular place was closed for some kind of pipe emergency or whatever. So I ended up at this place called Brew and Pages across town that I'd walked past maybe 100 times, but never actually went into. You know how you get into these routines, and you just never deviate from them? That was me with coffee shops. But today, the universe apparently had other plans. So I walk in, and immediately I can tell it's one of those spots. You know the kind. Exposed brick walls, mismatched vintage furniture, and string lights that are somehow both cozy and pretentious at the same time, and a chalkboard menu with drinks that have names like the Philosopher's Bean and Lavender Dreams Latte. Normally I'd roll my eyes at this kind of place, but honestly, it was kinda nice. Different. I get in line behind like 3 people, and I'm doing my usual thing of staring at my phone and pretending to be busy, when really I'm just scrolling through the same 4 apps over and over because I'm too socially awkward to just stand there and exist in space like a normal human being. And that's when I notice her. She's sitting at this little table by the window, and the afternoon light is hitting her in that cinematic way that doesn't actually happen in real life, except apparently it does, because it was happening right in front of me. She's got this book open in front of her, an actual physical book, not a Kindle, which somehow made her even more intriguing. And she's wearing this oversized burgundy sweater that looks insanely comfortable. Her hair is up in this messy bun situation, with a pencil stuck through it, and she's got these tortoiseshell glasses that she keeps pushing up her nose every 30 seconds. And here's where I need to be honest with you. I'm not the kind of guy who approaches women in coffee shops. I'm not the kind of guy who approaches women anywhere, really. My dating life is basically non-existent by choice and circumstance in equal measure. I'm the guy who makes self-deprecating jokes to deflect from the fact that I'm actually kind of terrified of rejection, and I've become so good at it that it's basically a defense mechanism at this point. But there was something about her. Maybe it was the way she smiled at whatever she was reading, this little private smile like the book was telling her a secret. Maybe it was the way she'd occasionally look up and out the window with this thoughtful expression. I don't know. All I know is that I looked at her, and my brain went, "Oh no," in that very specific way. That means you're about to do something stupid. I ordered my coffee, just a regular coffee, because I refuse to say Philosopher's Bean out loud to another human being. And I told myself I was going to sit down, drink it, maybe get some work done on my laptop, and leave like a sensible person. The universe had other plans, though, because literally every table was taken except, you guessed it, the other chair at her table by the window. So I stood there holding my coffee like an idiot for what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably 30 seconds, doing this mental calculation of whether I should just leave or ask if I could sit. Finally, I walked over, and I swear my heart was pounding like I was about to defuse a bomb or something equally dramatic. "Hey, is this seat taken?" I asked, and immediately wanted to punch myself because could I be more of a cliché? She looked up from her book, and her eyes were this really warm brown color with these little flecks of gold in them. And she smiled, actually smiled. Not that tight, polite smile people give when they're annoyed but trying to be nice, and said, "No, go ahead." So I sat down and pulled out my laptop, fully intending to mind my own business. I opened up this article I'd been meaning to read for work, and I was maybe 2 paragraphs in when I heard her laugh, not at me, but at her book. It was this genuine, delighted laugh that made me want to know what was so funny. I glanced over without meaning to, and she caught me looking. Instead of being weird about it, she turned the book slightly so I could see the cover. "Have you read this?" she asked. It was a Terry Pratchett novel. Guards. Guards. Specifically, which happens to be one of my favorites, and I must have lit up like a Christmas tree because she grinned and said, "I'm guessing that's a yes." And just like that, we started talking. Not in that forced small talk way, but actually talking. About Pratchett and Douglas Adams and Neil Gaiman, about how fantasy and sci-fi don't get enough credit for saying profound things about the real world, or about our favorite books and the ones we pretended to like to seem smart. She told me about how she was rereading the entire Discworld series in chronological order, which was both impressive and slightly insane. I told her about my embarrassingly large collection of unread books that I keep buying because I have a problem. Her name was Melissa, I learned. She worked as a graphic designer for a small agency downtown and came to this coffee shop every Thursday afternoon because it was quiet and she could actually concentrate, unlike her apartment, where her roommate was apparently always watching true crime documentaries at full volume. We talked for maybe 20 minutes, and it was so easy. That's the thing that got me, how easy it was. I wasn't overthinking every word, or wasn't running through conversation trees in my head trying to figure out the optimal response. I was just talking, being myself, laughing at her jokes, and making her laugh at mine. And then my stupid brain decided to ruin it. I don't even remember what we were talking about, something about bad movie adaptations of books, when she mentioned how she'd love to go see this new indie film adaptation that was playing at this small theater across town. And without thinking, without engaging any of my mental filters, I said, "I'd suggest we go together, but let's be real, you'd never go out with a guy like me." I said it as a joke, as one of my classic self-deprecating deflections, as a way to acknowledge the thought without actually having to risk anything. It came out so naturally, with this little laugh attached to it, because that's what I do. I make jokes about my own inadequacy before anyone else can. But the second it left my mouth, I wanted to grab the words out of the air and shove them back in, because her expression changed, not in a bad way exactly. But she got this look, curious, maybe a little challenging. She tilted her head slightly and put down her book, giving me her full attention in a way that made my stomach do this weird flip thing. "And what's that supposed to mean?" she asked. Her tone wasn't offended or defensive. It was genuinely curious. "What kind of guy are you?" I felt my face getting hot. "I don't know, just, you know. You seem like you have your life together, and you probably date guys who are confident and charming and don't spend their Thursday afternoons restructuring their fantasy football lineup for the 5th time this week." She laughed at that, but it wasn't a mocking laugh. "You play fantasy football. See? That's exactly what I mean. That's not a cool thing. That's not an impressive hobby." Who said it had to be impressive? She was smiling now, really smiling, and there was something in her eyes that I couldn't quite read. "For the record, I spent last Tuesday night organizing my bookshelf by color, even though I knew it would make finding specific books harder. We all have our things. That's different. That's quirky and aesthetic. Fantasy football is just sad. It's not sad if you enjoy it," she said, and she leaned forward slightly, resting her chin on her hand. "You're doing this thing, you know." "What thing?" "This self-deprecating thing where you put yourself down before anyone else can. It's actually kind of annoying." That caught me off guard. "Annoying?" "Yeah, because you seem like a perfectly nice, interesting person, but you keep trying to convince me otherwise. Like you're arguing against yourself." She paused, and then she said something that absolutely floored me. "Why would you assume I wouldn't want to go out with you?" My brain completely short-circuited. I just sat there staring at her, trying to figure out if this was actually happening or if I'd somehow slipped into an alternate dimension. I don't know," I just figured. You figured what? That I'm too good for you? That I only date certain types of guys? She wasn't angry, but there was this firmness in her voice. Going, you don't know anything about me or what I'm looking for. You made this whole assumption based on… What exactly? I don't know, I admitted, because I genuinely didn't. I guess I just default to thinking I'm not someone that people would choose. The words came out more honest than I intended, and there was this moment of silence where I wished the floor would open up and swallow me whole. But Melissa didn't look uncomfortable or pitying. She just looked at me with this expression that was equal parts understanding and determination. Well, she said slowly, and there was this little smile playing at the corners of her mouth. So try me. I blinked. What? Try me, she repeated. And this time, she was fully grinning. Ask me out. Actually, ask me. Not as a joke or a hypothetical. Ask me to go see that movie with you, and we'll see if your theory about me not wanting to go out with you holds up. Holy shit. Holy actual shit. Was this happening? I looked at her, searching for any sign that she was mocking me or setting me up for some kind of elaborate joke. But all I saw was this open, genuine expression. She was serious. She was actually serious. Are you sure? I stammered, because apparently I was determined to talk myself out of this. Am I sure that I want to test whether I'd enjoy spending time with a guy who clearly loves books, has been making me laugh for the past 20 minutes, and seems genuinely kind, despite his best efforts to convince me otherwise? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. She pulled out her phone. So are you going to ask me, or are you going to keep self-sabotaging? And that's when something in me just clicked. Maybe it was the way she was looking at me, like she was actually seeing me and hadn't found me wanting. Maybe it was the realization that I was about to ruin something potentially amazing because I was too scared to believe I deserved it. Maybe I was just tired of being my own worst enemy. Okay, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. Melissa, would you want to go see that movie with me? Like as a date? I would love to, she said immediately, and she was already typing something into her phone. Give me your number. I gave her my number. She texted me right there so I'd have hers, and the message just said, see? Thought that wasn't so hard. With that little smiley face that somehow made me grin like an idiot. We ended up staying at that coffee shop for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her disastrous attempt at learning pottery last year that ended with her somehow getting clay in her hair. I told her about the time I accidentally joined a book club thinking it was about business books, but it turned out to be romance novels, and I was too awkward to leave, so I just committed to it for 6 months. She laughed so hard at that story that she snorted, and then she got embarrassed about snorting, which made her even more endearing. When we finally left, because they were literally starting to stack chairs around us, we stood outside on the sidewalk in that awkward way where neither person wants to be the first to leave. The sun was setting, and the sky was doing that thing where it turns all pink and orange, and I remember thinking that this felt like a scene from a movie, except it was my actual life. So I'll see you Saturday, she said, confirming the plan we'd made for the movie. Yeah, Saturday, 7 p.m. I'll meet you there? Sounds perfect. She hesitated for a second, then stepped forward and hugged me. It was brief but warm, and she smelled like vanilla and something else I couldn't identify, but immediately wanted to remember forever. I'm glad the universe made you come to a different coffee shop today. Me too, I said, and I meant it so completely that it almost scared me. She walked away toward the bus stop, and I just stood there, watching her go like some kind of rom-com protagonist, still half convinced that I'd imagined the whole thing. But then my phone buzzed with a text from her. Also, for the record, I think fantasy football is kind of cute. Shows you're into strategy and team building. Very attractive qualities. I laughed out loud right there on the street, and this older couple walking by gave me a weird look, but I didn't even care. The thing is, I've spent so much of my life telling myself stories about who I am and what I deserve. I've been so good at being the funny, self-deprecating guy, the one who makes jokes about his own inadequacy, that I forgot those jokes can become self-fulfilling prophecies. I was so busy convincing myself that someone like Melissa wouldn't be interested in someone like me that I almost missed the part where she actually was. I keep replaying the moment in my head, that pause after I made that stupid joke, but the way she looked at me and said, "So try me," with this mixture of challenge and invitation. It was like she was offering me a chance to rewrite my own story, to stop being the guy who assumes he's not good enough, and just be the guy who shows up and tries. And now I have a date. An actual date with this incredible woman who reads Terry Pratchett and organizes her books by color, and called my self-deprecation annoying in the best possible way. A woman who didn't let me hide behind my usual defenses, who saw right through my jokes to the fear underneath and decided to give me a chance anyway. I'm sitting here now, back at my apartment, still kind of in shock. My roommate asked me why I'm grinning at my phone like an idiot, and I tried to explain, but the whole thing sounds so improbable even to me. Knock. I joked about how she'd never go out with a guy like me, and she smiled and said, "So try me," and I did. And she said yes. It's wild how one moment can change everything, how one decision to go to a different coffee shop, one conversation about books, one honest response to a self-deprecating joke can open up possibilities you'd convinced yourself didn't exist. I don't know what's going to happen on Saturday. Maybe the date will be amazing, and this will turn into something real. Maybe it won't work out and we'll realize we're better as friends. Maybe I'll do that thing where I overthink everything and sabotage myself again. But for right now, in this moment, I'm just letting myself feel excited and hopeful and terrified in equal measure. Because she said, "So try me," and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Holy shit, you guys. I have a date.